Crag Climbing Center is a rock gym located in Dayton, Ohio, with 8,000 feet of textured and sculpted vertical terrain ranging from 28 to 56 feet. For more info, go to urbancrag.com or call 937-224-CRAG. Mark Manovich the other night, he posed a question, should we think about legalizing drugs? And there was some kind of friction between him and another gentleman in the room. The question didn't get answered. The city of Dayton has been going through, just like in many urban areas, drug war for 40 some odd years now. Should we consider changing the course we're on right now?
It's a good question. I got to say, my first reaction is no. I mean, just my gut reaction. But, you know, I've talked to the chief about it, and I think I probably would look at some modification, although it's going to take a lot to convince me. You know, looking at the evidence, we spent a lot of money. There's a lot of people going to jail for things that, you know, that nobody's dead. But I got to say, it's going to take a lot of evidence to convince me.
Is there a logical argument for keeping marijuana illegal? Now, that seems to be the biggest contention of people. People say, okay, you know, someone who's a marijuana smoker, they're not very likely to be out in the street in a big brawl and a lot of drama. They're hanging out, chilling, watching TV a lot, whatever. But hard drugs are another issue. You know, and is that is there a differentiation, or would the city ever consider lowering penalties on one in order to crack down more on another?
I don't know. I don't know where you draw that line, and that really is key. You know, what's harmful, what's not, what has really bad effects on society, and what doesn't. And in order to draw that line, I have to be smarter on that issue than I am. I mean, it's probably half medical, half public policy issue.
Okay.
And I just don't know how you draw that line.
Okay. Abandoned houses in Dayton are a big issue.
Yeah.
Has the city ever considered, and I don't know if this is possible, but being a former member of a combat engineer unit, I've thought, man, we have all kinds of bulldozers, big equipment that, you know, I spent one summer down in Shadyside, Ohio, after a massive flood killed a bunch of people. I mean, we went in and just, you know, dumped trucks and just cleaned everything for, you know, the whole summer.
Those are the kind of things you're talking about, I think, is using the Army capacity for good orders.
Yeah. Could we ever do that in the city? I mean, has anyone in the city talked about, you know, the Ohio National Guard, they've got a lot of guys. If they're not deployed overseas, you know, this is the same kind of training a combat engineer unit would do. Tearing things up, smoothing things out. Yeah. You know, it's basically, they're civil engineering units for the most part, you know.
I think it's a great idea, a really good idea.
Okay.
Actually, I'm going to go look into it if it's okay with you. That's an awesome idea.
You'll need my approval.
And I think it would be great. I mean, the only thing I can think of is there's some sort of federal prohibition on doing things like that here. In that disaster relief, you know, the governor calls troops out, and then sometimes the president.
Could 10,000 empty homes?
Well, yeah, could qualify as an emergency. You're right, that's a great idea.
Okay.
That's a really good idea.
And could the city ever consider offering, like you were talking about, considering it in the land bank right now, people like veterans, you know, hey, we'll give you this house for free in the city if you'll commit to live here, be a citizen here, and you know, strive to make life better here. And the same for like police and fire cadets.
I'll answer your question in a second, but a couple years ago, I looked at and I talked to city staff about putting together a program so that recent college grads, like grad school grads and others, could do that sort of thing. They could move into the city, move into a house, maybe get some assistance from the city with fixing whatever needs to be fixed up. Maybe they could put sweat equity into it and then sign a paper saying they would stick around for 5 years or 3 years or 10 years or whatever, however long a period. And I'd still like to do that, but the reality has been the last couple of years there's just no funding for it. Now, that said, I'm open to anything like that. I would love to do that. We've seen people do things like that. The hospitals have enticed their employees to come they've given loans like around Miami Valley. Children's has done a program like that. Other institutions are trying to bring their employees to live closer because it's smarter, you know. So I would love to try to do that for veterans, or like you say, police and fire, to try to keep them here instead of having to go out of the city.
Okay. Now, another subject that was brought up at the forum the other night at the Adam Project was strong mayor. And I've talked to people like up Dayton. I know they're, the executive director over there. She's like, I really think we need a strong mayor government. And you said, change the charter. But is it really, I've been reading today, is it really feasible to change the charter when people are going to have to get up to, I've read, up to 14,000 signatures to pass the bar comfortably to get something on the ballot to change the charter?
No, there's actually a way around it. We as commission could put something on the ballot without getting the signatures.
Okay.
So there's a way around that.
So you would have to approve of a movement of different groups, or what? I mean, what would it take for you guys to do that?
Really, it would just take a groundswell of support. Right now, whenever I go to meetings, just like the one we had Thursday, you hear some people who are very in favor of a strong mayor. You hear some people who are very in favor of the strong city manager. You heard Commissioner Lovelace last Thursday sort of talk about that, how we were pioneering strong city manager form of government. It's kept politics out of hiring decisions, that sort of thing. And then you have a lot of people who either don't care or don't know what it's about enough to make a decision. So I think it would be, if an organization really wanted a strong mayor's form of government, it would behoove them to go out and do a public education campaign, visit the neighborhoods, visit the priority boards. And when we as commission would feel that groundswell and the citizens would like to see it on the ballot, then I don't see any reason why not.
Would you ever consider or voting for lowering the threshold for the signatures on certain things? Because right now it's easier to get on ballot for Congress.
I know I have to get a lot more signatures than candidates. When I'm on the ballot, I have to get a lot more signatures than county or state candidates. I'd look at it.
Okay. Gets to another thing. We're talking about city participation. You were like, you guys covered the Landmark Commission.
Yeah.
And it was an important thing. They were talking about vinyl windows, but that affects people in historical neighborhoods.
Been hearing about it for years.
Yes. And one thing I've noticed is about a lot of the city meeting times, like the Landmark Commission, I think the Board of Zoning Appeals, they're held during daytime hours when the majority of citizens, unless you're working third shift or, off hours, if you're working 9 to 5, there's no way you're going to be able to go to one of these without taking a day off work, and that entails, getting kids ready, taking care of the situation with your employer. Why doesn't the city of Dayton move its meeting times to a general time like 7 o'clock, where most public meetings are, in order to encourage participation from citizens and education?
Commission meeting or all the
all of the ones, they have the one commission meeting at 8:30 in the morning, which is it's lower attended, than the 6 o'clock meeting, but a meeting time that's general in line with public meetings in order to encourage citizens to get involved. And the Landmark Commission was saying, it sure would be nice if people knew more about this process. Yeah. I'm like, hey, if it was at 7 o'clock at night, probably more people would. What do you think about that issue?
The meeting time that I partially control, along with my colleagues, I'd support going to all evening meetings if we thought it would get an upswing in participation, and that's why we're here. I think the thinking has been that people who do business in the city it would be easier for them to have an 8:30 meeting in a forum to come and express themselves. So I think that's why it's been like that. But I'd certainly support changing it if we get better participation. As far as the other committees, I think they control their own meeting times. So that wherever a majority of their members are able to meet, I think that's when they meet. There might be some specified by legislation, but I don't think so. I think it's really.
Do you think it's maybe a little bad PR? It may give the appearance that we don't want people to come in here and check these meetings out during the. We were going to put these when it's hard times for most people to get to. I mean, because they are tough to get to, 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Well, I mean, you've probably served on committees, and you know how hard it is sometimes to get your board members there. Some of it may be just trying to fit times in. If they work downtown, maybe they're trying to be considerate to them.
Okay. All right. Let me hit the best. I've got a question from a reader here. It's a really good one here. And she wrote, what exactly is the relationship between Citywide Development Corporation and the City of Dayton? Where's accountability for the money? It's a multi-layered question. So, where's the accountability for the money it channels? It claims to reflect City Hall policies, but its financial portfolios are kept private. It claims to have won the trust of the city's two largest employers, UD and Miami Valley Hospital, but interestingly, both the current city manager, Tim Riordan, and the Miami Valley Hospital Director of Campus Planning and Real Estate are alumni of Citywide. Citywide is one of the many development corporations in town, St. Mary's, Port Authority, name a couple more. They get grants, which I assume are government money. They pay for their salaries first, then produce what? Are we as taxpayers getting good value for money through these organizations, and how is that value measured?
It's a good question. It must be a person that works for citywide or countywide or county court, because they really know their stuff. Yeah, I think we get good value for our money from citywide. I would give Techtown as the best example. Right now, citywide can do things to develop Techtown that we can't as a city that we're restrained. So citywide, they own the land now. They administer the building. They collect the rent from the people who are over there. And it's things that statutorily, some of the things we can't do as a city. So they're helping bring great jobs to the city. They're helping develop parcels of land that we can't do. And frankly, because of all the cuts we've made, we don't have the capacity to do some of those things. So as far as dollars, we've given citywide money for specific projects, but they're self-sustaining almost. They get grants in, they get money from the developments they do. She had a question about funding.
Yeah.
Oh, the numerous development organizations.
Yes.
Some of those, like St. Mary's, it's a small nonprofit. It wouldn't have the capacity probably to do the bigger deals that citywide does. She mentioned, County Corp is another one the county does. County Corp does have good capacity, and they work in concert with citywide sometimes. There are other smaller neighborhood development corporations that focus mostly on housing or maybe small business, like really small businesses. So I think citywide fits a niche, and I think they certainly do have the trust of quite a few people in the community. And it's a good question.
How does the city measure that empirically, or how's that? That's
back. This is before my time, 15, 20 years ago, I think the city actually made regular payments to citywide, and they put it into revolving funds, and they reused that money. But we haven't made support payments to them in a long time. So there's, there wouldn't be a way to measure input output because we aren't putting in.
Okay.
But, we certainly, have a good relationship with both Steve Nutt and Steve Budd over there, and I make sure there's open communication so we know what's going on.
Okay. One last question. I've got tons of questions, but I know you're short on time today. A big question I hear is, when are we going to get a grocery store downtown? And, I've been to commission meetings, and I think it was a couple weeks ago, there was like a $250,000 given out to, I think it was Tech Metals, or it was, Tech Metals out on Springfield. And I was reading in the paper this morning, there's some people in Fairborn opening a grocery up for like $100,000. I was in Toronto this winter, and I was amazed at the small grocery stores up there that were just packed with fantastic items, and the use of space. Would the city consider possibly subsidizing a grocery store, a smaller scale, not like we always seem to think on, we've got to have a big box, but something that's like solid, small, takes care of, people who live downtown can go to, get their stuff, and get out? Would that be, if that would drive numbers of people? That's the biggest thing I hear people say. I would love to move downtown, not a grocery store. I'd drive. I want to be able to, if I live downtown, I want to walk to the grocery store. And I hate driving.
People say that. I'm not sure that's a driving force of decisions. First let me say this. I would love to see a grocery store downtown. I'm currently talking to people. Dr. Urban had made some plans to maybe bring one over there. I'm not sure how that's going, but the conversations are ongoing. It would be great to have one downtown. But I think once we take care of bringing more people downtown, the amenities will take care of themselves. I mean, not that I wouldn't support giving some help if that's what it takes right now, but I think having the population downtown and that density.
But can you get them without? Can you get them without the other? Who's going to move downtown when you got to? I want to shop in my neighborhood.
Yeah, it's a chicken and egg problem. It really is. And I mean, you've seen the answer so far. We've decided to focus on housing downtown and to bring people in. And so far, it's going pretty well. Condos are selling. Our vacancy rate is as low as it's ever been. I mean, since I've been here. Okay. So I think we're going to solve it one way or another. If we need to put some incentives toward bringing a grocery store and some other amenities here, I'd consider it. I really would. I mean, it's not up to me. I have 4 colleagues. So, but I would consider it would be great to have a grocery downtown. Last words are all yours. I know you got to get going. Sure. First of all, thanks for interviewing me. You're doing a great thing here, getting the word out. There's a hole there that I'm glad you're filling. I'd like to be a commissioner again. I really enjoy what I do. I feel like I've spent 7.5 tough years making cuts and trying to keep services, at the level that people deserve. And I want to be there for the other side. Things are starting to turn around now.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be there to help shape Dayton for the next 30 and 40 years with, who we bring in, where we spend our money, how we treat our neighbors, what our neighborhoods look like, what the development looks like. All those decisions are coming up in the next couple of years, and I feel like I'm going to be able to really affect those. And because I have the experience, because I work in one of the areas, the focus areas of economic development, sensors research and defense, I feel like I'm in a good place to help influence that future, and I really would like to do like it. So I hope folks vote for me.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I really could keep talking. This is good stuff.
Oh, yeah, I could talk all day. I mean, I really